Hey y'all, Brandon Rinas here. Hope you're doing absolutely amazing. So my channel is going to be twofold, and if you just want to watch one side or the other, that is totally fine. But this side right here is going to be a journal slash entrepreneur slash how to become successfully financially secure type of video. And it's going to start from the very, very bottom, which is where I'm at right now, till when I'm at a very successful spot and a lot of people know about me and I'm worth a lot of money. So we all hear these different stories. We all hear about how, oh, anybody can make it to being rich. But we rarely see examples of this. I mean, I shouldn't say we rarely see examples of this. We don't have examples on YouTube or on videos that we can watch a person go from point A to point B. But one of the things, what happened for me is, long story short, I've done a lot of different things. I've had some success financially. I've really done well overall. I've had lows and highs. I've failed at businesses. I've been close to bankruptcy a couple of times. So I've really been, the average American. But I've never been wealthy. I've never been well off. But I've always preached about how anybody in the United States can go from bottom to the rich. And there's lots of examples of that. I mean, shoot, you could look at the owner of KFC, Colonel Sanders, and how he turned out. I mean, starting at the very bottom, working his way up, failing many times. How about Robert Kiyosaki? Another excellent example. Or another example, and this is not the best one, but it still works, is Donald Trump. Now, again, this is not to get political, so let's just focus on what he's done. We as poor people or average Joes or middle class or whatever you want to call us, when we fail or when we struggle or when we see a lot of debt, we don't know how to get out. We don't go, oh shit, we're going to be super successful. How am I going to work my way out? We usually fail. Donald Trump had $9 billion in debt, and he still worked his way out. Robert Kiyosaki started off dirt poor, had a rich father, like a friend of his that was a father, who taught him how to think like a rich man, and a poor father who taught him how to think like the average person, like you and I, the poor and the middle class. And he chose to follow his rich dad's footsteps. He ended up with nearly $1 million in debt in the process of trying to become wealthy. And then he ended up making it. He failed, he struggled, he fought, he clawed, and he moved on. So there's a few examples. But to me, there's very, very rare that we actually hear of the person that starts at the ground and works their way up. And that's what this is going to be. Now, when you hear somebody tell you, I'm going to go to the moon or whatever, you're not going to believe them unless you find out, oh, they're an astronaut, they've focused on this their entire life, blah, 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 blah. And man, now all of a sudden you can start believing they're going to do something that would be slightly impossible for most of us. And the same thing goes for wealth. Now, I have 0 family members that are wealthy. My parents are pretty much broke. My dad is never going to make enough money to retire. And Social Security is not going to cover him when it comes to being able to retire. So he's doomed the rest of his life. That is my parents. So I don't have smart parents when it comes to finances. I don't have any brothers or sisters that are super successful. I don't have any super close friends. I have one friend that I work with. He's a business friend of mine. He's worth a decent amount of money. I would say, he might even be a millionaire or so. But he would be my closest friend when it comes to being successful. That's it. So I don't have this huge surrounding group of really well-off, successful people. So how am I going to do it? Well, first of all, I got to explain why I'm starting. And I'm starting because I'm sick and tired of being where I'm at. I am so sick and tired of barely surviving. I am so sick and tired of wondering, man, is my next paycheck going to cover it? Am I going to have enough? Realizing, you know what, I'm going to be 40 years old working, 50 years old working, 60 years old working, 65, hoping and praying that I might possibly be able to barely retire. And maybe that's okay for you, and that's fine. If it is, more power to you. But it's not okay for me. I want to travel the world. I want to see the 7 wonders of the world. I want to do what I want, when I want, as long as I want, the rest of my life. And obviously, I can't do that today. So how do I get there? And that's what it's come down to. So what I have dedicated is the last, I would say, 1.5 years of my life to studying, educating myself, pushing myself, learning, growing, and trying to find different ways to make money, trying to find different ways to be successful, trying to learn how the rich people think. And what this is going to be is a journal, whether it's every 2 weeks or every month. I'm not exactly sure how often these videos are going to be out there, but I'm going to post a video every so often of how my journey goes and how my progress goes. And you guys are going to be able to watch me go from completely dirt poor to successful. Now, 2 months ago is when I started this. So my wife and I, long story short, we got to a point where we had less money coming in than bills going out. And I realized we were going to go bankrupt. Something had to change. My wife and I were going to go bankrupt. We have a kid that's on the way. She's 6 months pregnant. What do I do? Actually, technically, she's 7 months pregnant now. And it was a freak out moment. For me, it doesn't matter when I go broke if I'm by myself and I'm single. I have no one to pay for. I have no, whatever. I'll figure out a way. I'm a hard worker. I'll get out of it. But that was finally the moment where I realized I'm so sick of this. Yes, I could fight. We're going to fight our way out. We're going to get out of debt. We're going to pay our credit cards off. We're going to pay all of our bills, and we're going to find our way out. But then am I going to end up in the same boat again? Because I've done this enough times to know that that's probably the trend. I'm going to end up in that same boat. And I've been studying how successful people are successful. Where do I draw the line? At what point do I say, I, Brandon Rinas, am going to actually get out of debt? I, Brandon Rinas, am going to become successful. Not out of debt, but successful. And when I say successful, this is what I'm defining as successful for me. I am going to be so successful that I can travel, party, or do whatever I want as long as I want and be able to afford it. I will have so much residual income coming in, so much rental money coming in, so much business money coming in, whatever it would be, that I can travel the world with my wife and with my kids and not ever have to worry about going bankrupt. That's where I'm drawing the bar, or that's where I'm setting the bar. And I'm nowhere near that. Right now, my wife and I, as of yesterday, we are officially making more money than we have going out in bills. By $20. Not very much, right? We're kind of broke. That's what it comes down to. What we did is, it's very hard and it's very frustrating, but you're just going to hear of how I started, and we're going to just kind of go through and progress things. So we started off by, we finally had our come to Jesus moment. What are we going to do? How serious are we going to pursue this? And the reality was that I went all in. My wife was willing to go all in with me, and so that's what we did. And the first thing you do, and it is the most miserable thing in the world, but you have to figure out where all your bills are. And for me, I hated that. It was so humbling to look at all of our bills and all the money going out and realizing I'm not making enough money to provide for my family. We make jack squat. About 36 grand a year. That's what we're making right now. That ain't very much, folks. And I'm just going to show you how you can go from 36 grand to a multi-millionaire. And you guys can laugh at me if I fail, but I'm not going to. I'm just telling you that right now. I might go bankrupt, but I'm going to be successful. So what I started doing is I started studying. I started figuring out, how do you do this? And so what you do is you start off by finding all your bills. You figure it out. What are your problems? What are your bills? Where are your issues? And so we figured that all out, and we go, oh shoot, we can't afford this. My wife has been so awesome as to we're cutting our bills so drastically. We've tried to find every penny we can possibly pinch. One of them was that my wife is washing our clothes in the tub and hanging them up outside to dry just to cut bills because we have to go to a laundromat. That's $5 every load. So she's saving money from that perspective. We sold my truck. I had a truck that we weren't using enough. We had to pay for insurance on that thing. Why own it? Oh yeah, it makes me feel like a man. Cool, I'll give you that, but that's not a reason. I want to be successful. I want to be able to own the biggest truck if I want it. So we sold that, and we're going to use that cash to put it towards our credit cards. Now we have, I believe, 4 credit cards. 3 of them are completely maxed out. We couldn't even afford to make the minimum payments. And so what we did is we have gone through every single credit card, and we have found which ones have the highest interest rates, and we're paying off the highest interest rates ones first. Or if it's like, let's say like one credit card has just so much money on it that there's no possible way we can pay it off anytime soon, then we put that one last, and we pay the smaller balances, and out of the smaller balances, we're going to pick the highest interest rates, if that makes sense. So we're trying to pay the highest interest rates off as fast as possible, as long as it's a reasonable price and how much we have to pay when it comes to our credit cards. So these are all things that we are doing every single day. And the sale of that truck was what finally put us in the profit margin. Also, we're asking ourselves, how can we become more successful? How can we find extra ways of making money? For me, I've started working 1 extra hour every single day when it comes to my work. So that's extra money that we can put towards different things. I have been trading the stock market some on the side, and I haven't had a ton of success. I've had some, but a little bit. But I've been studying and learning and growing and maturing and literally spending hours upon hours upon hours. I mean, we're probably talking 200 to 300 hours of research now I've done on studying the stock market and learning how to trade it. And when I realized, okay, we have more money going out than coming in, I realized instead of being this half-hearted research, I need to go all in and I need to focus with everything I've got. This is the only way I know of how to make extra money on the side. So that's what we've been doing. Each of you, we're all going to have different ways of doing these different things. But you might be able to trade baseball cards or football cards or whatever it is to make a little extra money on the side. One of the things that Gary Vaynerchuk suggested that I was listening to on YouTube was that you could go to just a Goodwill. And if you have, let's say, really good taste on clothes, you could go and find the cheap clothes and say, oh, that's a $2 shirt that I can resell on, Craigslist for $10. And you could go do that if you have an eye for clothes, or maybe you have an eye for, CDs, really cool records, what records are worth a lot of money, or whatever it is. We all have different strengths. We all have different weaknesses. I'm not very good with pop culture, things of that kind, or even style, so that's not going to work for me. So these are all just little things that my wife and I have been focused on doing. And we're finally gotten to the point where we're going to have 2 of our worst credit cards when it came to price paid off. And that's super encouraging. We're finally in the profit margin just a little bit. We have a trailer. I have a camper trailer I'm going to be selling here in a little bit. Should give us a little bit more profit margin. And the rest of it is education. It's pushing myself. So what I'm going to end this with is if you're actually focused on doing this, and I'm guessing that 100% of the people, I'm guessing 100% of the people that are watching this are not going to follow through on anything I'm saying. And you shouldn't, because I'm poor. Why would you listen to me? But in a year or 2 years or 3 years, when you know who I am, when these videos are successful, or maybe they're never successful, but people go, oh, hey, that's Brandon. He owns this business, this big business, or he owns all these houses, or blah, 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 blah. He owns that franchise. Then you'll go, you know what? I'm going to look that guy up, and you'll be willing to go through these videos, and you'll be able to see what I did to get there. And I would start off with the book I just finished reading is The Richest Man in Babylon. I listen to things while I work. I'm able to do a job where I'm able to put in earbuds and work 9-10 hours a day and listen and study while I'm working. And so that's what I do. And I come home exhausted sometimes because my brain's been working harder than my physical labor. But that is my goal, is to push myself, to keep learning, to keep driving, and to have success. I am not going to settle until I can get a massage as long as I want, whenever I want, 7 days a week. And that's an expensive feat, folks. So anyway, that's just day 1. That's what this video is I'm just showing you where we're going or where we're headed and what we're started. Another couple small things that you might want to change in your mindset is, for me, I've really focused on my mind, my mental fortitude. When I said, if I become successful, that was how my mind always worked. And I asked my wife, correct me. It's when we become successful, when we have success, when we're loaded, when we're wealthy. And it takes time. It took months. But we're now at the point where I just told her today for the first time, I was like, I said that like I meant it. And I did. It was the first time it actually came out of me like I meant it. That's helpful. Another thing, and this is Robert Kiyosaki, someone I would highly, highly recommend. We're actually going through one of his training programs. But Robert Kiyosaki says, never say I can't afford something. Always ask yourself, how can I afford something? How can I afford it? Maybe you won't be able to afford it because you'll realize to be able to afford it, it won't work out. But always ask yourself, how can I afford it? My wife and I are in that same boat. We've cut back all of our frivolous spending. We're not buying ice cream. We're not buying anything fun. The only thing that we're doing, splurging on, I guess you could say, is food. We're not going out to eat, but we are still eating good food at our house. That is the only thing we're doing. And we're going to go from rock bottom to loaded. Robert Kiyosaki, one of the people I recommend listening to the most. He has phenomenal books, whether you're talking about real estate, the stock market. His most famous book is called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Highly recommend it. I've read it before. I'll read it again. But he came from dirt poor to super successful using a lot of the things I'm going to be doing. And so I'm going through his training program to become this successful. I am listening to other supplies of information, like I was talking about with The Richest Man in Babylon, different things of this kind. And I am trying to push myself and move on and move forward. So that is my goal. That is where we're at right now. And I'm just telling you this right now. We'll go for in 2 weeks or whatever it is when I do my next video, you'll be able to see, okay, what are the next steps Brandon's doing? Maybe these videos become much shorter. I don't know. It'll just be, okay, this is what has happened in the last 2 weeks. This is what has happened in the last month. Maybe it's not going to be all that much. But you will be able to hopefully have a step-by-step process for yourself, if you so choose, to get out of being in the rat race or to get out of being in the bottom, the muck, the surviving, the barely making it. Tell me, is it worth it for you to have a little fun every now and then and constantly be bankrupt, or to be able to afford to have as much fun as you want the rest of your life down the road? What is your why? Because in order to be successful, you can't do it half-heartedly. In order to become a pro football player, you can't just go in and say, I'm going to kind of try. In order to be a pro basketball player, in order to be super successful in business, even Steve Jobs, whether you love the guy or hate the guy, you know he gave everything he had because he's super passionate about it. Bill Gates, Donald Trump, again, you don't have to like the guy. You recognize the man is passionate about what he does. He truly believes in what he does. He's all in. And if you're willing to go all in, you can have success. I'm going to have success, and I'm going to prove that by going all in. Last thing I'll leave you with, a really good way to start changing your mind so you can start thinking like a wealthy person, or start thinking, how can I get out of this mess, is to play a game called Cash Flow. Cash Flow Classic. I don't know if you can look it up. I believe you can Google it and just go cashflow.com or robertkiyosaki.com, and it would be on that website. But it's a board game you can play on your computer called Cash Flow. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. It will literally show you how you think and how rich people think. And it will teach you, help train your brain to think like a rich person. So that way you can be as successful as wealthy people. Just like I'm going to be, just like you can be. This isn't something I'm preaching. This is something I'm doing. That's all I've got, guys. Looking forward to the next video. Have a good one. Peace out.